Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Blair Meriden, and I'm the CrowdStrike Marketing Campaign Manager from TD SYNNEX Public Sector. And I'd like to welcome you to the latest product training in our CrowdStrike mini-series. As always, this training is brought to you by TD SYNNEX Public Sector, an authorized CrowdStrike distributor and the premier government solutions aggregator, solving IT challenges for the federal, state, local, and health markets. Before we get started, let's go over a few housekeeping items. Your lines are muted for the duration of the training session. However, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to drop any questions in the Q&A or chat field. This session will be recorded and can be accessed through the same location where you registered. So if you missed a previous session, just go to the listings and you can watch the recorded sessions from there. Also, be on the lookout for a quick survey before we conclude. We'd really appreciate your feedback so we can make any adjustments for future training sessions. And if you have any technical questions, please message Felicia directly in the chat. And before we begin, here's a brief intro for today's subject matter expert from CrowdStrike, Peter Fabianski. Peter Fabianski is a solutions architect at CrowdStrike specializing in the public sector. With over 5 years of hands-on experience, Peter is a mastermind in networking engineering, system administration, and IT solutions. And if you haven't sat in on one of his webinars, you're in for a treat today. Peter is a wealth of knowledge and inspiration in endpoint security, identity security, and threat intelligence spaces. So without further ado, take it away, Peter.
Awesome. Thanks, Blair. Hi, everybody. Let's go ahead and share my screen here. Share the other one. There we go. Now, as you were probably expecting by the title of this, you were probably looking forward for Insight XDR. And you're probably like, oh, well, Peter, why are you putting up a next-gen SIEM topic on this? Just kind of as a quick aside, CrowdStrike's Insight XDR product is really, pivotal and important, of course, but we're really built past, that XDR into kind of our next gen SIEM offering, as we'll talk about today. So, if you're wondering that, don't worry, you're in the right place. Now, as we move forward here, before I dive into kind of what our solution is, I always like to kind of hit on the problem here. And if you've sat in any of my other webinars in the past before, it's a very common theme, to endpoint detection and response and kind of adversaries. The long and short of it is adversaries are still moving in a very quick, fast-paced manner. If you haven't read any of our threat intelligence reports, or even some of the other industry reports like put out by IBM or Ponemon Institutes, this idea of breakout time for a criminal organization to get into a machine, laterally move, and cause some type of impact, that number is going down year over year. We're seeing organizations spend as little as 62 minutes to be able to do that. And we've actually observed organizations do this in a little over 2 minutes, where they get in, they find what they're looking for, they execute some type of payload, and they're off to the races within a few minutes, which is just absolutely absurd. The inverse and the issue here is that it's taking over 200 days to identify this breach and to respond to it. So if you have these two things that are just not lining up, there's going to be some type of issue that we need to solve here. So this is where CrowdStrike's kind of coming in, being able to provide that threat intelligence and provide a kind of key solution for our customers to be able to go ahead and actually solve this. Now, traditional SOC tools, you're probably familiar with, a number of different screens and solutions, and the concept of bringing data together to be able to see everything in one place. So if you're seeing everything in one place, you can go ahead and execute from one place. Well, we've noticed a lot of people are still, getting a number of siloed tools with all these data sources not necessarily in that same place. The idea here is to be able to go ahead and be able to have that data complement each other and be able to fire off of different meaningful unified detections and be able to have that kind of high fidelity. The idea is currently a lot of our customers and a lot of people in the industry today are really seeing a kind of absence of that, where you're seeing alerts firing, but maybe they're ambiguous. Maybe they're not necessarily giving you, the full story. The intelligence that's associated with those alerts isn't necessarily lining up with what you're doing. You're having a lot of investigations when you do find something that's worth investigating, taking time because it's very manual efforts. I have a number of SOC analysts that are friends, and they often pivot to leveraging spreadsheets where they're copying and pasting data in between, different siloed tools and dashboards to be able to make it all sense. And don't even, get me started on talking about how you report all this up on the board on some type of daily or weekly or quarterly cadence. That's a whole issue on itself. It's like if your data isn't in a single place, how can you go ahead and be able to, kind of take those actions and be able to report on it? It makes it very difficult. I think that's kind of the point I'm trying to belabor here. Now, bear with me here. Let's imagine a better future where we can unify security operations in one spot and be able to break silos down and kind of bring them together. Well, you don't have to worry too long because that's kind of what CrowdStrike's really doing with our next gen SIEM today. This is where we can go ahead and be able to take and ingest all the data here and be able to process it in one spot. Key data is already in our platform. If you're familiar or heard some of my previous webinars or maybe read some solution briefs, we're playing in 20 plus different subject areas. We have a sensor that sits on the endpoints. We collect a bunch of data and we utilize it in a number of different, kind of ways. Again, if you haven't seen this slide, this is just a number of spots that we're really focusing on, whether it be endpoint detection response, identity, cloud, next-gen SIEM, data protection, exposure management, IT automation, intelligence. And we'll get to it in a second, but we have a multitude of other world-class cybersecurity technology alliance partners that can plug their third-party data in to be able to have everything in one spot. So that's really addressing, that first kind of issue. Hey, how do we get everything in one spot and make it all play nice and mean something together? That's really the second pillar here, monitoring and detecting. With our XDR, when we first launched it, we had some okay rules out of the box. Now, since we're running off of CrowdStrike query language and leveraging our log scale as the back engine to house all the data, you can pull this data in, you can keep it in one spot, you can keep it for a very long time to be able to have this historical leverage, whether it be compliance or for some other type of regulatory reasons. And we can go ahead and be able to have this data to historically look back if a new CVE comes out and you're like, hey, was I ever susceptible to this? These correlation rules are very easy to look at, see if they're applicable, and they're going to be beneficial based on intelligence rather than being like, hey, let's turn on this thing to be able to go ahead and have it affect, a specific VMware, CVE, and let's just guess that we're susceptible to it. Again, if you're not familiar with LogScale has the ability to take any queries and turn it into dashboards and widgets too. In some cases, even having that data flow in live. So the greatest thing here is being able to have this data here for our analysts, but also have it for your SOC managers and your directors to be able to report it to the board or their bosses, respectively. Again, there's definitely that response side of things that we need to hit on. So this is where we're able to either orchestrate internally with ourselves, leveraging our Falcon Fusion SOAR playbooks and workflows, or if you're trying to plug in an outside tool, whether using some other third-party SOAR, we can go ahead and be able to do that as well. So you can have all this data here. And you also have the ability to investigate and hunt. Again, we'll spend some time on talking about our incident workbench, but this is where we're bringing all that data together in a visualization, a visualized spot, and kind of showing you all that information. So I showed you this slide right here. This is really, kind of, the nucleus slide, as I like to call it, where we have our singular agents. We have our data layer. Again, the crowd and CrowdStrike is being able to bring together millions and millions of different indicators of attack and data points. So if we're seeing one thing, the power of the crowd kind of keeps you safe. We've extended that past just the threat, and we're also giving you the ability to have that intelligence of these threat actors. Again, you have nation states like Iran, North Korea, China, Russia, etc. They're not only sponsoring nation states hacker teams, they're building out their own for funding their own economic purposes. So we want to make sure that you have this data kind of at your fingertips, ingrained, at the foundation of whatever, security platform program you're really putting together. So this is really where you have this culmination to be able to go ahead and have the best of both worlds. This is where we have a number of these different modules and be able to go ahead and kind of have this all broken down, and you can go ahead and be able to have this, really be provided for you. So we have our SOC right here. That's really going to break down 4 pillars for you. And again, as I hit on here, this is where we can go ahead and give you a number of data points to be able to pull this information in. And these data points are really focused on being able to break it down and be able to give you the best. And this gives you the best of both worlds to give you a breakdown of pulling in any data source, whether it be an existing third party or an existing first party, and being able to pull all of this in with a number of different data sources. Like I said before, we have a number of different marketplace packages. So again, if you're familiar with like your Oktas, your Zscalers, your Proofpoints, maybe you're leveraging Microsoft identity data points. Maybe you're using different identity providers. We can pull all this data in, be able to normalize it, parse it, and enrich it with first and third party information to kind of give you the best of both worlds. Now, when we're talking about parsing this data, again, sometimes an IPv4 address looks different, across 5 different data points. That's where our parsers can come in and be able to give you, that Rosetta Stone, so to speak, to be able to go ahead and parse that data and be able to have everything kind of aligned, speaking the same language. We can go in and enrich other third party and first party data together to be able to go ahead and have it mean something, have higher fidelity alerts, and really correlate everything together. And like I said, since we're running that engine with log scale, we have the ability to have that long-term storage. Again, long-term storage can mean different things to people, but leveraging our Falcon search retention, or FSR for short, we typically see people keeping, again, their data live within Threat Graph for like a week to 14 days. And then that will pivot over into long-term retention, which again is just existing in your next-gen SIEM area, where you can keep that data for up to 3 years. So whether you have federal customers that need to keep that data for live for 2 years for regulatory and compliance reasons, whether you want to be able to keep it because it's part of your SOC strategy, you can go ahead and be able to do that in a cheaper way. And since we don't index any of the data, you don't have to really wait on queries that are expensive and bulky coming back and not running, so to speak. So what does this really get us? This allows us to be able to go ahead and really stop breaches in a more faster, meaningful way. We can reduce our response time, and we can cut security costs by leveraging all this data that we have in here. Again, we're also leveraging Charlotte AI. I'll just quick disclaimer. We don't know when Charlotte AI will be in our GovCloud, so this is only available in our commercial cloud offerings as it sits today, just as a quick aside. Again, I was talking, one of the big things, and again, if you're not new to the conversation of, kind of finding threats, you need that data to be able to threat hunt, to be able to see this. So being able to have this data real time is very important. And that's really what we're doing, because we can log all of our data and pull it in at this kind of petabyte scale. And since we're not leveraging any type of indexers and we're actually index free, we can pull this data in near real time. So you can have your first or your third party data pretty much at the second it's happening to be able to respond as this incident is happening as well. So having this high speed and scalable foundation is going to help you drive this level of speed and urgency that you all deserve to be able to keep from this security perspective. Now, the idea here is, again, from a commercial perspective, leveraging our AI-powered analytics to be able to go ahead and take all this data and really make your alerts and your incidents much more high fidelity. Again, we don't want to have a level one SOC analyst sitting here trying to string data together and then deciding, okay, let's go ahead and toss this up to tier two and let them take care of it. Let's get human interaction much more in a meaningful, much more kind of interwoven to make sure that if someone is doing something, they're doing it with purpose. I'd much rather have a tier one analyst, be part of the team and being able to start the response, being able to take action rather than weeding out the noise and then passing it off to a tier two and say, hey, this is the stuff you should actually care about. And that's really what we're trying to do. The data and the intelligence that we're picking up on from our counter adversary operations and our threat intelligence that's interwoven into the foundation of CrowdStrike Falcon is really being able to do that. We're tracking, I think, 240 plus adversary groups now, and we are boiling it down into operational data that you can access via API. And it's, of course, being pumped in via the indicators of attack and indicators of compromise that folks are leveraging within the Falcon console. But again, you have your C levels that also want to be able to stay up to date with what's happening. We're putting out these executive PDFs. So just as a quick aside, if you've never looked at counter adversary operations or threat intelligence for CrowdStrike before, absolutely get up to speed on it. It's a very easy talk track that every customer would benefit from, and it practically sells itself. So the way that we're leveraging this intelligence, as I mentioned before, is really just pumping it in and being able to integrate it with this AI. Again, I'm not going to spend too much on this, but the idea is instead of you trying to figure out all the data, you can go ahead and be able to summarize all this relevant content and have AI-driven recommendations. We will get into GovCloud when we can. That's all I'll say. Now, the idea is to reduce the mean time to respond and boost this analyst productivity, as I was kind of talking about earlier, not only with offloading a lot of the work you have to do on the front end, but also do this on the back end as well, with those responses, whether they're automated and they're triggering off of, pre-built playbooks, or maybe they're just very complex workflows that you built out that are set on a manual trigger. If you find something that, needs to quarantine specific hosts and, prompt their users for a reset and, send that over to an IT ticket, within a ServiceNow or a Jira or whatever you're leveraging, maybe that's something that maybe takes your analyst, I don't know, 5-10 minutes to do, but multiply that by 40, 150, whatever the number may be of the accounts that they would have to do that for. That's a lot of time you're saving if you have a workflow defined and you can copy and paste all of those host names or usernames and hit trigger workflow and go on to the next thing. So this is the idea here. We're not looking for people just to go and say, hey, let's unplug what we're doing or completely change the ideology of how we're hunting today. Let's go ahead and just give them the ability to kind of bolster their existing tactics and techniques on how they're protecting their organization and make them a little smarter and add some automation kind of to this. Now, the first thing that we kind of hit on, from a tactical perspective is we need data. So we have that first party data flowing through, but how do we get the third party data in? Well, it's very easy. We have a My Data Connectors area, and this is an area where we can go ahead and pull your third party data in. Now, I mentioned we have connector packs. You can see in this screenshot, we have guys like ExtraHop, Zscaler, Cloudflare, and those are easy. You go ahead and you can click a button, you drop the API in, you have the connector pack downloaded, and that data will be flowing in, and you'll be able to see where this data is coming in, and you'll be able to see what's active, pending, and disconnected. But you're probably asking, hey, Peter, what do you do if, my customer is using, I don't know, XYZ firewall that they, don't have, native integrations of most solutions out there, and we have to build custom integrations. Well, I'll tell you right now, we do have a HEC HTTPS connector, and our parsing engine or our parsing schema is based off of Elastic Comma schema. We've made some adjustments, but all the documentation is available So you can easily be able to adjust a parser and be able to manipulate that data and get that custom data in very easily. This is a easy way to be able to pull this information in, whether it is one of these, out of the box connectors, or whether it may be one of these, kind of offshoots. Whether it be, a third party, big or small, we can go ahead and handle it for you. Now, I mentioned the incident workbench before. This incident workbench is really giving you a spot to be able to go ahead and really see everything in one view. Now, when we say we want to centralize investigations, we're trying to give you one spot where you can actually work out all this data. And that's really what we're doing here. And if you look at the screenshot right here, we're looking at a next-gen SIEM or XDR instance, however you want to say it, and we have the ability to go ahead and actually show you all this data here that's actually going through. Each one of these are different detections. Now, if you see an incident within next-gen SIEM, it's a culmination of detections. You can either have an analyst, manually string together these detections to form an incident, or you can go ahead and look at the automatically created ones by CrowdStrike as well. And you can come in here and you can see, okay, well, these machines were involved. We see that there was phishing attachments and malicious files being associated with this machines, and we can see that was winward.exe, and phishing attachments originally started over here from this address. So you get a lot of information in a central view. The idea here is you can now come in here, be able to look at all of this data, and be able to understand what you're looking at from a holistic perspective. I mean, this may not make too much sense if you didn't have this phishing attachment data here showing you how this actual investigation happens. There's a number of additional things we're doing in here as well, like adding in intel enrichment. So if we're seeing a specific tactic or technique, or if we're seeing a particular domain that might be associated with like a C2 with a threat actor, we're pulling that data in automatically. You can, of course, if you have other data that you're getting from an outside source or you're seeing it, you can pull in and change and edit this on the fly as well, which makes it very useful. I don't know if you noticed these little circles up in the top right corner, but you can also actually have multiple analysts working on this data at the same time. And the way it's actually loaded up, it's in a real-time view. So think like Google Docs, where you're working on a Word doc or a PowerPoint presentation all at the same time. You have the ability to do the same thing with these incidents and add notes and add triage, things. You can at your colleagues or at escalations or IT to be able to go and prioritize patching and things of that nature. So it's a very strong platform to be able to have your kind of colleagues and your SOC team actually work on and be able to go ahead and collaborate and again reduce that overall mean time to detection and be able to get there even quicker. Now, the Unify alerts are really cool. Again, we're firing off these alerts in a number of different data domains. So if you think about it, endpoint and identity, those are usually going to be coming from CrowdStrike. Whether it be our identity threat protection solution, if you've seen it. But if you actually look at these different data points, we have alerts that are firing off here from Okta, Mimecast, ExtraHop, as well as our CrowdStrike native ones. So this allows you to be able to look at all this data in one single spot. Now, it's not in this screenshot. I may have one available. If not, I can definitely kind of pause and pivot over into our console here. But the cool thing is you can actually look at this with a filter and actually map it back to MITRE ATT&CK framework. So if you're only worried about, let's see, initial exploitation or account takeover with compromised accounts, you can go ahead and filter by those specific filters, which is really cool. This allows you to prioritize and correlate all this information and have these filters that help you kind of achieve that in a quicker, more meaningful way. AI Investigator, I mentioned this, again, unsure when it will be in GovCloud, but this is where we can go ahead and reduce investigation fatigue, where we can leverage Charlotte AI, be able to ask her for a little bit of help and be able to kind of get this threat context automated. We can build up threat summaries. We can recommend remediation actions and build out these attack graphs. And this is where we can go ahead and get a lot of this overall fatigue reduced, just being able to take a lot of this data and normalize it and make it a lot more actionable. And did I mention dashboards? I think I did in the beginning, but the idea here is this is where we're going to be able to go ahead and give you, meaningful data points, whether it be from a SOAR perspective, from a SOC perspective. You'll have a number of different analysts that are really built in here to be able to go ahead and have a number of workflow automations and be able to have kind of meaningful 50,000 foot views for the guys in the front lines, but also people that are really looking at it from that perspective. Now, the idea here is being able to go ahead and kind of start people on their next gen SIM journey in kind of a pragmatic way. Again, we understand people are not necessarily going to just rip and replace us, from a legacy SIM and go and swap over to CrowdStrike for this. So our idea here is really to focus on our Falcon data. If you have users that are already leveraging CrowdStrike, this is an easy way to be able to say, hey, let's go ahead and look at what you're doing from a malware and insider threat perspective and keep this data here. What we can do is we can actually fire up Falcon data retention, which is Falcon search retention now. And this is where we can go ahead and store their data for that longer period. They have access to the threat hunting, language. And we actually have Next-Gen SIEM turned on for all of our customers where they're getting 7 days worth of data stored for free up to 10 gigs. And this allows our users to be able to go ahead and actually bring in other data sources. So if someone's curious about how they would potentially use Next-Gen SIEM and they're already a CrowdStrike customer, they can start pulling some of their data in and be able to play around with it to be able to go ahead and see how it would work when they made the switch. Proxy logs and firewall traffic logs typically follow. Again, these are the most useful data points that we're seeing being leveraged from a SIEM perspective. So we typically see, well, hey, we see a lot within EDR and we see a lot within identity, but we're missing a lot of gaps here. We need to understand what's going on from an IDP perspective, from a network perspective. So whether you're working with like a correlate or an extra hop, or you're leveraging like a Palo or a Fortinet or some other type of data points, we can pull all that information in and be able to give them that kind of view. Again, this is a condensed version of who we're working with and what we have built out today for integrations, but we're always adding more integrations day after day to make sure that we have this kind of built out for our customers and making sure that they have what they need in the easiest, simplistic way. Again, the idea here is being able to give a meaningful way to be able to threat hunt, to be able to reduce costs, and again, increase that kind of productivity. If you think about the average cost of ingesting and storage and hardware, it adds up quick. But being able to have all this information in one spot, that need isn't going away. So being able to have a more less complex but more kind of crafty way of being able to do this is really going to help our customers out in the long run. Again, just kind of hitting on a lot of the last couple of the key points here. Next Gen SIEM is really going to give our users a lot of benefits. Number one, being able to have all this data in one platform, being able to have an extension of your EDR XDR data, and being able to give you this real-time performance is going to give your customers a leg up when they're battling against the adversaries. So again, this is where we have, kind of a number of value props that we can kind of hit on here, and, kind of culminate what I was talking about. But this is really how we'll go ahead and be able to help our customers stop breaches and, stay ahead of those adversaries. Now, I mentioned we should have some time here. I'm going to go ahead and pause my screen and pivot over and show you guys a live detection. But while I'm doing that, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat here while I'm pulling this up. I just had my screen paused if someone was wondering, oh, Peter, you're not sharing the right screen. Well, I don't have what I'm trying to pull up quite yet.
Peter, it looks like we do have a few questions, but I was just going to save those till the end unless you wanted to take one of them now.
Yeah, I'll take one of them now. That's fine. I'm just firing up the
Okay.
console here.
What business outcomes does Falcon Next Gen SIM deliver?
Yeah, great question. As I was kind of talking about it towards the end there, that's where we can go ahead and be able to help our customers to reduce overall costs, with a more kind of automated way to be able to go ahead and, bring all this data together in real-time detections. So you'll be able to go ahead and be able to, have your current FTEs much more affected, with reducing the costs of storage and reducing your cost of keeping that data, and being able to get those high fidelity alerts will result in that quicker mean time to respond, reducing the overall time it takes. So that's at a high level how it would go ahead and kind of reduce that overall.
Great. Yeah, I have another one here. Where can I find a list of integrations?
List of integrations should be on our marketplace. Again, we're working on our integrations for GovCloud right now. Those should be live by the end of our fiscal year. But this is something that is sometimes dependent on our customers. But if you're looking at in commercial cloud, they should be live in there.
Perfect. And we have one more if you have some time. How do customers get non-security data into the platform and how are dashboards created?
Yeah, non-security data is easy. I mean, you pull it in, and you can pull it in with custom parser. Again, it may not be super relevant to your customer's case, but that's how you can pull it in with that free data, like I was saying, and be able to actually look at it and be able to go ahead and have that data, kind of be in that singular view. So you can look at that within our detections kind of menu that I showed a screenshot of, and being able to see that, again, helps our customers be able to kind of discern whether or not that data is helpful, from a security perspective or not. All right. Yeah. So not the best example, but like I was saying, this is like your incident workbench where you have a number of different, kind of incident timeline views. You can export this visualization as a PNG. You have the ability to run Charlotte Investigator as well to actually analyze this view, and being able to go ahead and actually enrich the data. Again, running Charlotte will go ahead and let you analyze this. But again, it looks like this one isn't supported, just, the level of complexity, probably nothing relevant in here. But what I was curious in showing you guys was the MITRE ATT&CK matrix filters. So again, if you're looking at your detections here, you can actually turn this filter on right here. And let's just say we're looking at initial access. Maybe it's around phishing or trusted relationships. We can go ahead and click that. We can go ahead and click apply, and we'll go ahead and actually filter down our various detections here to be able to show those various data points here, all broken down by MITRE ATT&CK. Again, we have a number of other great things from a roadmap perspective that I won't touch on that was announced at our Falcon user conference about a month ago. So if you haven't heard about any of those and you're interested, I would urge you to go onto our website, CrowdStrike.com, and there should be some recap session there. I think it was like the Falcon News Hub. You can like register, and all of our keynotes are actually registered or pre-recorded there and available. But that's everything I had for today. I'm happy to pass it back over to you, Blair, and we can definitely talk about our next episode here.
Yeah, I'll let Caleb touch on this real quick. Caleb, go ahead.
Yeah, 100%. Appreciate it, Blair. Thanks, Peter, for everything. I thought that was some great content there. So everyone hopefully gathered some additional information there. One of the things I want to remind you guys, if you guys have anything you need, any sales related questions or anything about anything you saw today, please reach out to us at crowdstrike@dlt.com. Also, this will conclude our series for this year. The next episode will be in January of 2025. So be on the lookout for that schedule. Be on the lookout for the invites, all the updated information. So if there's anything that you want to see moving forward, please drop us a note. Also, with the post webinar survey, you should have that information. So please make sure to provide that as well to give us your feedback so we can make sure these are more beneficial to everyone moving forward in the future. But again, appreciate you guys attending, and I'll hand it over to Blair.
Great. Thanks, Caleb. Well, I just want to thank everyone who joined our webinar today, for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you all in the new year with our series. Thanks and have a great day.